Today I'm going to be looking at a set of data from the 2015 U.S. State of Education that has been collected about schools in the U.S. So first, when this comes up, there is some information on here that I am not going to need, this text box over here, so I can delete that because I want to focus on the table of data, the scatter plot, and the map. To organize things a little more, I want to look at more of the data at once so I can expand that. And today I am going to compare the South and the West regions of the United States. So there's a lot of data here about Northeast and the Midwest, and I don't need to look at that because that's not what I'm focusing on. So I can come into the census region and organize these in alphabetical order so I can select what I do and don't want to see. So all my South and West states are down here. So I can select all of these and I can actually hide those so I am not looking at that data as part of my scatter plot. And now all of these data points are also highlighted over here. So all of the orange ones are the states that I am looking at on my map. And if I click on a point over here, it'll show me the data for it in the chart. It highlights where it is on the scatter plot and it highlights the state on the map. And I can do the same thing by clicking on a state and it'll highlight the table and the data in the table and the point where it is located on the scatter plot. So since I am focusing on the difference between the two census regions, I'll organize that data on my y-axis. And then first I'm going to look at average salary. So I will put that on my x-axis. And the first thing that we can do if we come into our ruler is we can show the mean. So we can look at that measurement first. So the mean average salary in the South region is $50,950. And the mean average salary in the West is $53,646. So the average salary is larger in the West on average than it is in the South. And so let's look at the median and see what that tells us. And we are getting similar or the same information from median, meaning that the typical salary in the West is going to be larger than it is in the South. So if I were choosing where I wanted to work based on average salary, I would choose the West because they have a typical larger salary in the West than they do in the South. And we can look at some very specific states. So this one, which is right on the median, this state is Washington. And their average salary is $52,969. Which I can also see if I scroll over here, and Washington is located right up here. But if you're deciding where you want to teach, you should factor in more than just average salary. So let's take a look at another measurement over here. So let's look at expenditure per student. So how much money as a teacher I will have to spend on each student in my classroom. And so it looks like the mean, which is 10,846 in the West, and 10,375 in the South. So the mean is larger in the West, and as well the median is. So I have another collection of data here, and my statistics are telling me that I would rather teach in the West because I will have more money to spend on my students if I teach out West. And there are a lot of states out here, but if I wanted to look at opposite ends, so Arizona has the lowest expenditure per student with 7,143, but Alaska, way up here, Alaska has the largest with 19,244. And if I wanted to leave that information there and look at something else, I can actually put revenue per student and overlay that and look at what that gives me. So it gives me this color scale. So the lower revenue is going to be the lightest colors and the largest revenue per student is the darker colors. So it looks pretty well distributed, but it does look like there's a linear correlation here. And I can look at that fairly quick and note that. So what I can actually do is insert a least squares line on my graph and see that there is a strong positive linear correlation here. So that would mean that the revenue per student is most likely going to be larger in the West since the expenditure per student was larger on average based on the mean and median in the West. So if I put these in here, sure enough, the revenue per student mean in the West is 12,202, and the mean for the revenue per student in the South is 11,417. And the median is giving me similar information that the revenue per student is larger in the West than it is in the South. So again, I have another piece of information and statistics to back it up that are telling me that I will be better off teaching out West. But let's just look at one more thing, because I would be worried about how many students I have in my classroom and how many students I will be responsible for. And the first thing I notice is that the data for the West is very spread out, and the data for the South is relatively collected right in the middle. However, the mean in the West is 17.6 and the median is 17.9. So we're looking at roughly 18 students per teacher in the West and 15.05 for the mean and 15.2 for the median in the South, so about 15 students per teacher in the South. But in this context, with students per teacher, I want a lower number, not a larger number, because that means I would have more students in my classroom if it's a larger number. So for this piece of information and this data that has been collected, my statistics are telling me that I want to teach in the South. However, I have a lot more supporting information, and in my analysis, I have gathered a lot more statistics that have told me that I would prefer to teach in the West than the South. So my final decision, after looking at all of these, minus the number of high school graduates, is that I would prefer to teach in the West. But all I have to do, and these are very close together, but slightly more in the South. I have slightly more high school graduates on average in the South. But still, that's two pieces of information out of everything I have, so the majority goes to the West region, so I would personally prefer to teach out West. Thank you very much for your time.